A very warm welcome to everyone in the audience as part of SFA's webinar series Kids, Sport and Country, where we delve into conversation on every aspect of sport. This week, we bring to you a very important yet underrated topic, which is sports psychology and its importance in every sports person's journey, right from the grassroots level to the champion's podium. And to talk about this, we have with us two personalities who have tirelessly worked in this field from the time it was unheard in India. It is my pleasure to welcome today Gayatri Vartak and Dr. Janki Devle. Now, for those who may not have, an idea of their achievements, let me quickly give you a brief. Uh, Gayatri is a former international badminton player who's represented India in various prestigious championships. She was the sub-junior national champion as well as in the top 100 singles in the world. She has also been a state-level swimmer and then obviously went on to pursue her psychology and completed a master's and also currently a PhD scholar. Uh, Dr. Janki has been a former international junior tennis player and a state level handball player, and she's pursued her psychology, completed her masters, and is a PhD in sports psychology. Now they own a very unique record, so to speak, which is Dr. Janki and Gayatri became the only sports psychologists in India to be recognized by the prestigious British Psychological Society. They went on to co-found Samiksha Sports, that has over the last few years worked on with the biggest names in Indian sport, including the Prakash Padukone Academy, Virat Kohli Foundation, as well as the Olympic Gold Quest. So without taking any more time, I'll jump right to it, and I'll start this session with my first question to Dr. Janki. Uh, Dr. Janki, many athletes, coaches, and other stakeholders from the sporting fraternity would firstly love to know the concept of sports psychology. I mean, when you started off, it was a very niche and a nascent topic, and it's obviously moved ahead in leaps and bounds. But what is it, and especially at the grassroots level, it would be great, if you could throw some light on this topic.
Yes. So, firstly, thank you for the lovely introduction, Gayatri, and I
My
are
pleasure.
humbled by that. Yes, like you said, that sports psychology or mental training, when we began, was a neglected field. However, over the last few years, its awareness is developing and changing. What sports psychology or mental training really means is how an individual, an athlete, a player, a coach, a parent is able to handle and manage his or her emotions, and how those emotions impact performance, and also vice versa. So to give you a simple example, if an athlete feels, if a player feels nervous, or if he feels pressure while playing, he's going to lose and the performance is not going to be optimum or the best. Once he has lost, that performance is again going to impact the emotion. So having known that I have lost the last match, I'm feeling low in confidence, and then I go in with that low confidence into the next match. So sports psychology or mental training is this relationship between your performance and emotions, and that is where we play a crucial role. And this is right from a young age. When a child starts playing competitive sport at the age of 8, 9, 10, and in through sports psychology we also work with on-field pressures, like the example that I gave you right now, but also a lot of off-field concerns and issues that children have, which have an impact on the sport performance and other areas in life. So sports psychology deals with on-field or off-field um, concerns and issues also. What we would like to do is, we have a small video to actually explain the impact of mental training and why it is important. So we would like to share that with you all, and then kind of continue to explain what
Yes,
sports
yes,
psychology is.
sure.
Jim, a young athlete, is jumping on the trampoline. He is trying to jump as high as possible with all his might. He is also maximizing his technical skills and physical strength while doing so. Now, on the right, you can see that Jim is jumping on the trampoline but with a harness. This harness is what helps him jump much higher than he could previously, while also ensuring that he does not fall down. Mental training is like this harness. It helps you perform to your very best while also making sure that you don't fall down. Mental training is this support that every player needs. So train your minds with us to be a champion.
So I hope this video gave everybody a good idea of how mental training contributes in performance. The one aspect that I spoke about before the video was, working on issues and concerns that players have. But that's one part of sports psychology. The second part of sports psychology is the peak performance or performance enhancement. So as sports psychologists, we don't not only work with problems or concerns that players have, but we also work towards performance enhancement. To give you an analogy, you don't only do your physical fitness or your physical training when you are injured or when you are physically weak. You continue to do it to get better and better. And mental training is just like that. You don't do mental training only when you're going through a slump or only when you're losing or only when you're feeling pressure. You do mental training to make yourself mentally stronger and fitter, to be able to handle the obstacles that you are going to face in your sporting journey. So I think that kind of summarizes in brief what sports psychology is.
Yeah, and I think very aptly, very apt analogy with physical training, right? Because I think everyone's so adept with it, or just simply knows that irrespective of whether I have a big game or not, I'm still training year round when
Yes,
it comes to my stamina or my strength.
absolutely.
And it's just as important, or in fact, I would put it more important than that. And I'd like to add, a phrase that I think MS Dhoni, of course, he's retired now from international cricket, but he very recently mentioned that it's even in cricket and something that's so developed, right?
Yeah.
They had till very recently they would have mental conditioning coaches only during tournaments, and that's where he said it's not the 15 days during that matter, but it's the entire experience of an athlete of
Yeah.
what he or she is going through that actually makes the mental state of an athlete.
Yeah.
So I think very, very aptly put, and I'll move on to you, Gayatri, with the next question.
Yes.
Which is, you of course been an international badminton player, and we'd like to know what was it like as a concept back then. Yes, it's developing now, but you've of course traveled places, played championships. So what was it like back then? How was it perceived? And I'll just add on a follow-up question before you start. Now, the fact that you work with the biggest organizations, sports organizations in India, like the Prakash Padukone Academy, Olympic Gold Quest, the Virat Kohli Foundation, what changes have you seen in approach towards this function?
Right. So, first of all, it's an interesting question. But so let me take you back a little bit. And, as players, pretty much like what MS Dhoni said, right? In the initial part, especially when I was playing, we would look at sports psychology more like something we would do one-off time. Or, it was more like repair, really. That we would use, right? Like there was something not working, and then we would do sports psychology because nothing else worked. However, very early in my playing career, because I always played at the Prakash Padukone Academy, I think, I was sort of blessed to have the right exposure. And we got introduced to our mentor, both Janki and I, sought his expertise while growing up, Mr. Bam. Bam sir actually was instrumental in my journey as a player because, he taught to us the mental aspect of sport. And I think when I did sports psychology with him, it was more to do with yoga and meditation and, very classical Indian philosophy rooted techniques, which of course worked. But as young athletes, it's hard to understand how they work because they're very intangible, right? And I think as we grew and, Prakash Padukone Academy being one of our first clients as we set out to work. And then of course there was Olympic Gold Quest or Virat Kohli Foundation, BCCI and so on. But I think one major change that we have seen is at Samiksha, our philosophy has always been prepare and not repair. So, we massively focus on the preparation aspect of the mental training, then rather than just saying, okay, there is a problem, so let's just work on it. So, similar to what Janki was saying, that there are two major aspects. One is when there are problems and we work on them.
Correct.
And the other is we prepare them so that when they face a problem, they know what to do. They don't have to fall in the ditch and come out. They know exactly what to do and they're able to sail through it smoothly. So I think that is a major change in the field over the last 10 years, and also an approach which is very central to us. I think also how it has changed is more and more people are now open to doing mental training. Initially, when we were younger, it was more like, okay, there is, you're going to a psychologist, you must be mad or there must be a problem, right? Now I think people are more aware and understand that sports psychology is actually for performance enhancement, like Janki was saying. It's not like you have to have a problem to see a sports psychologist. It actually just helps you optimize yourself as a person, and then of course reflects heavily on the field or the playing arena. So in just continuation with that, I would say that when we started out, our focus was really just the elite, and we also thought like, okay, there is a lot to do at the elite level of sport. And as we progressed in, I think 2.5 years or maybe 2 years, immediately we realized that, okay, we wanted to make an impact at the grassroots level. And hence why we came up with a host of programs for children as young as 8. So there are programs that are available on life skill development. There are programs that are available on basic mental conditioning of an athlete. And of course, they are transferable. So it's not like if you do this, it's going to help you in sport, but also help you across the board in other areas of your life. So I think that has been a major, almost like a paradigm shift in the sense of sports psychology.
Superb. And you said that you were obviously blessed with having the right guidance at the academy. And to some of us, I think our blessing only was our mother as a psychologist and nothing else. And while it was all in the right spirit and the best intentions, it was not scientific. So to have that scientific edge behind what goes behind in the psychology of an athlete, whether it's a child at the grassroots level or of course at the international level, it's so crucial. And I think one takeaway that I had was, it's encouraging, like you said, to know that now people look at it very openly with a completely open mind, to say that it's more towards performance and it's not a botch or a dark, so to speak, saying, ye doctor ke paas gaye kind of a thing. And it's I think increasingly getting better and better, and that's exactly why, of course, we're here to be able to make or create that awareness as much as possible, that sports psychology is actually one of the most important aspects of sport. Just a follow-up question again to you, Gayatri, that being in the badminton fraternity, I think part of this you may have answered, but I'll still feel like itching more out of that mind, is to say that you've been an athlete for a long time, and of course now as as part of Samiksha and sports psychology and mental trainer, what made you make that switch from being an athlete and then of course moving on to this function or domain, and how did that of course help you connect with sport even more?
So again, just going back a little bit, in that journey as a player, actually, I was exposed to a couple of psychologists, right? And what I realized was the theory remains the same, right? But if you have not experienced it, it's very hard to tell an athlete what to do. So I think, having played elite sport, that's an experience that almost comes to us at Samiksha very naturally. One of our main criteria of being a part of Samiksha team is that you have to have played sport at decent competitive level. because the
Right.
challenges that come in the books as opposed to what happens in the playing arena are extremely different. And you have to have that athlete perspective, a coach perspective, a parent perspective to all of that. um, so if you haven't really done that, it's very, very difficult to have an impact and a positive impact on the athlete. I think that's a given, and maybe that is what sort of inclined me to sort of make that switch, right? um, Secondly, of course, the passion to understand that the mind works very well, and it can sort of, it's your superpower. That's something that you use better than what your physical setup is. So, if you think about it like a computer almost, right? Your body is like the hardware, but if the system just hangs, you can't do anything, right? So without that mind, we really cannot perform. And I think that was the other inclination that came in straight away, because there were plenty of occasions when I choked on court, when I couldn't deal with pressure. There were different things at different parts of my life.
Right.
And I think it's very crucial to understand that your mind is maybe an equal or a more of an impact factor when it comes to the performance day. Nothing really changes in your skill or your physical capability from one day to another as much as your mind.
Correct.
So I think in that sense, it was a natural go-to switch for me, because I also did a lot of mental training myself. And on a lighter note, as I was sort of towards the fag end of my career, I think I met Janki, and we got into a conversation. So that just sort of rolled out. We had the same vision. We wanted to contribute to the success of Indian athletes, come back to the country and work, and make sports psychology affordable and accessible, and not
Absolutely.
keep it a privilege of the few. So that's something that we have been consistently striving to do over the years, and we've just begun, but hopefully we are going to be very successful at it.
Super. And I think psychology being the superpower is just aptly put there, because all you athletes, parents, coaches that are listening and wondering how to better performance inch by inch, this is your secret right here.
Yeah.
Coming back to you, Janki, before we of course go on to some of the questions, we've purposely kept this open, as a session where we can get more and more people to have questions that can be answered, so that the awareness that is required in this domain is more. So you've as an athlete, of course, a coach or the entire system of support staff is extremely important.
Yes.
And the whole system or the athlete is incomplete without that support. And as a sports psychologist, what's the difference, or how important is it from an athlete and a team perspective?
Right.
Because they're two completely different ways of approaching team sport or individual sport.
So, again, let me kind of maybe give you an example. Let's say that an athlete who's, whether it's an athlete in a team sport or an individual sport, let's say around the age of 8 or 9 starts getting involved, or maybe even earlier in today's days starts getting involved in sport. Let's think of this as a journey for that player from place A to place B. So let's say from the playground to the podium.
Right.
And this athlete is, traveling in a car. When the athlete starts the journey, the parent is really in the driver's seat, whereas the athlete is sitting next to the parent, and everybody else, whether it's the coach, the other support, are all on the back seat. So at the outset, it is the parent who's in the driver's seat, encouraging the child, motivating the child to engage in sport. That can happen below the age of typically 8 or 10. As the child grows, there are the places in the car are interchanged, where the coach gets into the driver's seat, the athlete is still sitting next to the coach is really driving that journey, and the parent and the other support system is still in the sitting at the back side of the car.
Right.
And this is maybe till the age of 17, 18, where the athlete is really enhancing his or her technical and tactical skills. Whereas post that, at the most elite level, the mental trainer or the sports psychologist is really on the driver's seat with the athlete next to him, because at that level it is the mind that makes the difference between victory and loss. And I'm sure we've all heard, plenty number of, elite athletes say that at that level it is whether able to stay focused, be determined, be perseverant, be disciplined, and that makes the difference between a winner and a loser. Like Gayatri said, before a crucial match at the elite level, you can't change anything about how physically fit you are or technically strong you are, but your mindset is the only thing that you can change and you can control really before a match or during a match. And that is why the role of a sports psychologist becomes extremely important at the elite level. But the journey, the sports psychologist is still sitting in the car, and it's important that everybody in that car, whether it's the athlete, the coach, the parent, the sports psychologist, or the other sports science experts, it's important that the place B, the podium or the goal is common for everybody, and there is coherence in how everyone wants to travel on that journey.
Right.
So it's extremely important that there is a well-functioning team for the athlete, whether it's a team sport or an individual sport. So there has to be good communication and good understanding between everybody that the player is involved in, whether it's a player from an individual sport or a team sport. And to answer your second question, about how it is different in a team sport, I think the challenges, for example, I've worked with the national men's Indian hockey team, and maybe let me give you an example. The concerns or the issues or the things that need to be addressed, and the way that a sports psychologist needs to work in a team sport and a team setting has to be completely different. And a sports psychologist firstly has to be a part of the team, or make sure that you're completely involved and ingrained in the culture of the team. You cannot be an external factor and work with the team. So I think to be able to translate that is very important. And of course there are team issues, such as there could be issues such as members from, say, North India would generally be together. Team members from the western part of India would sit together at a lunch or a dinner table. And these are minor things, but they do impact what happens on field. And these are also some of the softer things that a sports psychologist has to look at in a team setting. So I think those are some nuances and some differences in individual sport and team sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, whether it's an individual sport or team sport, when it comes to every athlete, it's the entire team that's working with him or her. Yeah. And it reminds me of tennis, how every athlete has that box up there, just sort of egging the players on. And something that I think Andre Agassi wrote in his book, which is he always won a crucial match, with his 22 minutes in the shower, and not when he actually played on ground. That's when he knew whether he was in the right mental state to actually go and beat a strong opponent or not. Yeah. So I think extremely aptly put there. And for all of you guys listening, you can actually subscribe to the services of Samiksha Sport. You can you can log on to the SFA Training Club. You get all the details regarding the courses and the sessions that are offered. And if you have any queries, we have people who would be happy to answer them and get you going on this path of success, using the superpower that everyone can actually possess. Yes. So I'll move on to the questions, and I'm happy to let either one of you answer based on what you feel right. The first question here I have is from Neha Patil, and it says, how do we explain the role and importance of sports psychology to parents and coaches, right? As athletes or as external sports supporters, how do you go about doing that?
So guys, do you want to take the question?
No, go ahead.
So I think a good way to explain this to a coach or a parent is to give a real life example. Emotions are something we experience throughout the day, whether you're on court, on field, playing, not playing. And I think the toughest emotion, for example, anger or frustration, which is felt by athletes on court or off the court also. Think about a time when you feel angry. You are not able to control your emotion, and in that you are you either say something which you don't mean to say, or do something which
Right.
you don't mean to say. And the same thing happens on court. When you feel angry, you either hit that shot in the net or miss that crucial goal. And I think it is a translation of what happens to us with difficult emotions off the field. The same things happen to us when we play. But as an athlete, to be able to perform well consistently, you have to be able to manage those emotions, because in a match you don't get a second chance more often than not. So I think this is a good way to understand sports psychology or the mind, and to explain to a coach or a parent.
Yeah, superb. So that's the answer there for you, Neha. And moving on to the next one, this comes from a girl called Dhwani Advani, and she asks, I think I'll take this with you, Gayatri. What is the scope for sports psychology as a career choice? I think that's right down your alley. For sports enthusiasts, because of course there are so many people who wanted to always pursue careers in sport, and this being a greatly developing sort of a function. How does one, what's the scope for it, and how does one probably go about doing it?
I think we are a country of millions of athletes, right? So, we need a whole bunch of qualified sports psychologists. And I would stress on the word qualified, simply because, you may think that you can be a very good sports psychologist or a psychologist, but let's remember that it's a science. It's
Yeah.
not something you get up and say, I have a passion for, so let me just do an online course and one correspondence degree and start doing it. I don't think that's the right approach. So to answer that question in the first place, there is a plenty of scope for you to get into this field. For example, at Samiksha, we have a big team. We have ongoing internships. So, there's plenty to do in the field, really. But a word of caution that you should and must have done psychology as a full-time degree. I would look at it, and I'm sure as the awareness is growing, every single person out there is looking at it. It's not, you can't call yourself a mental toughness trainer anymore and just put a doctor around your name, and it doesn't work. You need to have, a qualification to support that. And I think, it's only fair on the athletes and the lives that you're impacting, that you are a qualified psychologist. So sorry for being a little blunt, but that's being mindful
what it
of the
takes.
fact, mindful of the fact that we are playing with lives of young athletes and old athletes alike, and you want to make a positive contribution, because you're also in a way responsible for the way they think and be.
Yeah, and it's a science after all. So while you're dealing with the lives of athletes, it's also an important science. And an inside word, that in case you have missed out, Dhwani, earlier, Gayatri also mentioned that yes, you'll need the degree, but being a sports person is always a helpful thing, and I'm sure you are. So there's your answer. The next one is from Hardik Gagrani, and he asks very pertinent question. He says, we live in a culture where parents focus more on children winning competitions rather than the participation, or should I say the process of it. Can sports psychology play a role here, to tilt that focus away from winning to everything else that is actually leading to win something, right?
Yeah, I think definitely, what he said is right. There are a lot of parents who focus on the outcome and the result. One thing to understand for these athletes is that a lot of times, from our experience, we work with more than 5,000 parents maybe. But one thing to understand is that expectation is out of a positive feeling. It is not to make them feel pressure, but of course the pressure is perceived. So for parents also to understand that when we work with a lot of parents, and when we're working with athletes individually, the parents involvement is also required, and we do individual work with the parents also. So it is also important for parents to understand that it may not be the intention to put pressure, but that is how a child perceives it. And that is where the role of a sports psychologist also comes in, to help and explain the child and the athlete and the parent as to how things are being perceived, and what is the way a parent should communicate, say just before a match. often a parent would say that, go for it, go win and come. But
Yeah.
what is it that a child feels when he hears that from the parent? And every child understands this word very differently. So I think that is where mental training plays an important part in helping parents understand how to communicate with the child. What kind of instructions to give before a game, after a game. What do you say if your child has lost? What do you say if your child has won? So yes, sports psychology, to answer your question, does play a vital role in
Yeah.
that.
And so important to like you said, the response to an outcome is so critical.
Yeah.
Whether you win or lose, or it could be a team sport where the team has won but you probably underperformed, and all of those factors can be so sensitive to a young athlete.
Yes.
So
Sorry,
super.
Rajesh, but to add to that,
Yes, please.
in fact, when we sense this need of, having a better and a positive parent-child relationship, right? We always say that, having a child is your last and only chance of having a successful parent-child relationship.
Yes.
So, we actually at Samiksha do a program for parents called Positive Sports Parenting.
Oh, lovely.
And that is really for parents to have build a better relationship with their child and help them and support them through that journey effectively. Because parenting also, we are all first timers in parenting. It's not like we've had a lot of experience. So it's different with different children. We need to understand what needs to be done. So that's the reason that program's in place. So for all the parents watching, do visit the website, and maybe you'll be able to look at
Yes, absolutely. In fact, sport parenting, I think, should be
Yes.
the one of the most focus areas if we want to develop kids as holistic individuals, and of course winners at some point. Uh, Moving on to the next question. In fact, sorry, let me just take a pause here, and there's a thought that I have. We've been hosting the SFA championship for the last 5 years, right? And we get about 20,000 athletes across each championship, across multiple cities. And it's amazing to see the spectrum of reactions that parents have. So there are some parents who are so encouraging irrespective of the results. Some are there just to witness the pure joy of sport and also pass that on to their children, whereas some are so competitive that the child often feels overburdened by just the simple weight of that expectation, or just weight of reactions that parents give at one lost shot or things like that. So I just happen to connect to that right now, and it's so real to know that different people will react differently, and it has to be a very individualistic approach that we'll need to follow from a parenting perspective.
What we always say to parents is that, be your child's biggest fan, and that is what a child requires.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, there is no manual that a parent gets, and that is what we're trying to do by incorporating this program to help them understand what is their role really as a sport parent.
Right.
Yeah.
Lovely. So now the next question from Shubhangi Mishra, and she asks, an athlete has typically an athlete will have more lows, in his or her life than highs. And how does the athlete himself or herself, keep mentally fit? Why? Because it's always more lows than highs.
So, Janki?
Yeah, sure. So I think, what she said is absolutely correct. And that is also the biggest role of sports psychologists. And that's why we also need more of them. We only know of a couple of athletes who do exceedingly well, and, who come out at the top. And we only hear their stories. But the number of athletes that don't do that well is a lot more. Let's take an example of cricket in our country.
Right.
There are only about 20 to 30 cricketers during a particular period that are playing for the country, but there are millions of them who've tried to get there, and they've unfortunately not been able to get there. And those are the athletes who need this support, and who need to know how to mentally recover and stay mentally strong regardless of what the outcome is. So mental training plays a very important role there. And I think, to answer this question that he's asked, just like when you spend the day on court or on field, training physically, training technically, and then you come back and then you rest, right? You either whatever you sleep through the night, or you take a shower, or you stretch, or you relax, and you do something to physically recover, so that you're ready for the next day. And that is also, it's also similar for the mind. So when you've exerted yourself, whether it's on a day-to-day basis or throughout a tournament where you've maybe lost in the first or the second round itself, it's also important to mentally recover. And a sports psychologist will have a program in place to also help athletes mentally recover, just like they physically recover, so that when you're going into the next day, you are mentally ready again for the next day. So we also work a lot on athletes in that aspect, to mentally prepare them, to help them recover, and then prepare them for the next day or the next tournament or the next match.
Right.
Just to sort of add to it,
yes.
Like Janki said, recovery is one aspect, but what is key, I think, in both these situations, whether it's a low or a high, is the learning, and that should never stop. And this is sort of tracing back to that question on the culture of putting a lot of emphasis on the result, right? I think if we are able to build a culture which places a lot more importance on the process of it and the learning of it, I think that's half the problem solved, really. And I think a major part of our work today is to help athletes learn through that process, because as we are growing, we have technology at the tip of our fingers.
Yes.
Everything that is there is being Googled. As I speak, half of them are Googling what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely.
So, it's very important to understand that everything available on internet is not gospel truth. You have to be able to make an informed decision about whether this is right for you or not. And I think what we do largely helps children grow into better decision-making adults and rationalize this process of learning. So I think these are some important aspects of that phase of going through the highs and lows.
Yeah, and so the answer to you Shubhangi, is that you might have lows, but of course it's what you learn out of that will eventually lead to you getting those medals for yourself. And like Dr. Janki said, it's not only about cooling down or going into throwing yourself into the ice bath. It's actually doing that recovery for your mind that will eventually make the difference. Lovely. Prajakta Kadam is asking us, pre-match anxiety is a very, very common issue amongst kids, right, or young athletes, and I'd assume even amongst elite athletes. So what can any stakeholder, whether it's the athlete themselves, the coaches, parents, do or help to avoid or overcome this anxiety of pre-match performance?
So I think first of all, let's accept that anxiety is not a bad thing after all. I think that's our first start point. There's nothing bad about anxiety. It's actually an important indicator for your brain to understand that there's an important event, and which is why you're feeling what you're feeling. So which is a good thing. If you were not anxious at all, I'll be worried, right? So that the second part of that is, again, one is having that anxiety is good, and the other is you can never get rid of anxiety. No matter which psychologist can claim that, let me tell you, it's impossible. The only thing that we can do very well is help you deal with it effectively. Okay, manage it effectively, teach you techniques that are going to help you, sail through it very quickly, get over it very quickly, and still be able to perform. So you should be able to manage that anxiety and give your performance. That is the key, really. At least that's the philosophy we follow at Samiksha. There is nothing like cut off your emotions. It's always deal with them effectively, manage them effectively, and learn the right strategies. So for all stakeholders, I think this is key to understand that we have to accept it, and it is always going to be there. And the third aspect is there is plenty of techniques in sports psychology and in psychology which can be followed by an athlete to overcome this. But again, going back to what Janki was saying, it's important that every single stakeholder and the support system of the athlete has some access to a sports psychologist, because everybody's triggers for anxiety are varied, and identifying them and then being able to complement that with something that's going to help the athlete perform is key. So, if everybody, whether it's a parent or a coach who's going to speak to the athlete in advance, if they have access to a sports psychologist, they will definitely be able to talk to them about what is it that they need to do to help the athlete perform better.
Yeah. So first accept it, learn techniques and then manage it. It's as, as simply put, it's not as simple to execute. And that's why, you guys can of course take on programs and sessions. But the first step, like you said, Gayatri, is always, anxiety is normal. So nobody should feel, that it's something's wrong with me. And that's usually the first reaction that maybe a child might have. So Prajakta, you can, just accept that, yes, it's normal. And then you can, of course, go on to learn techniques that can help you deal with that and manage it much better. Right? I mean, in fact, I recollect MS Dhoni once saying that every time he went into bat, the first 8 to 10 balls, his heart would beat so fast, he would wonder whether things are okay with him. And here we're talking about the person the whole country thinks is the most calm person in the world. So it's absolutely normal, and to accept that and sort of take that fact.
So there's a quote by Jilly Bean King, and she says that pressure is a privilege of a champion. So I think that's a great way to look at anxiety, pressure as a positive emotion. And I think that is how every player needs to start thinking that, anxiety, nervousness, pressure, whatever that you feel is a privilege that you get as a good athlete.
Because there are some expectations of you or by yourself. So it's because you can actually do that well.
Absolutely.
Brilliantly put. So next question is a little different and very, very, important in today's day. Prabhu is asking this question. How different, would sports psychology be for a Paralympic athlete?
Gayatri, do you want to take that?
Yeah. So again, we work extensively with Paralympic sports, parasports, right? And I think the mindset doesn't really change. There is the same kind of needs or similar kind of needs an able-bodied or a para athlete really has. But what is key is to understand that there are many psychological and organizational challenges that come with being a para athlete. First of all, the recognition, which is a big problem, right? Secondly, the way they are treated or the way they are looked at is very different. And also, like, for example, I'll give you a simple example, a wheelchair athlete, right? Someone who's on the wheelchair and, is in spending hours on the wheelchair, is bound to develop sores, is bound to develop rash and areas around that. So, the physical aspects that contribute to the psychological well-being of that athlete is very, very high. So that is the sort of first shift that is very key for us as psychologists to understand. Secondly, I think one thing that really works to the advantage of athletes in Paralympic sports is that, they've already gone through certain trauma, okay, which has almost been life-threatening. So that perspective that they have towards life and sport in general is very optimistic and very good to see and work with, right? I mean, they're never really cribbing. They always rearing to go, want to do this, want to test themselves, never fear it. So, these are some excellent qualities across the board that we see in para athletes, and I continuously tell my young athletes that you should keep on learning from them because there is so much to it. There are amputees, there are people with low vision, and they all are able to do every single thing that an able-bodied athlete is doing. So
add to Gayatri's point, through our work with para athletes, we've actually noticed that the mind is their most strongest tool. And the body kind of learns to compensate for what it doesn't have, and that's the role that the mind plays for the para athlete. So in terms of being mentally strong or motivated, they have all of that because of having gone through their own life experiences, and also because the mind is constantly trying to compensate for something that's missing. So for example, simple things like their senses, which are very important in sport, or the grasping power, which is also very important, the skill acquisition, which is important, that is very, very heightened in para athletes. So that's also, that's a big learning for all of us also, to understand how the mind works and how it can again be a super power for someone who's disabled. So I think that's also something that's very important with para athletes.
Yeah, so in fact, like you said, it's an eye opener to say that actually, the skills that even para athletes possess mentally are already at a level where they're so optimistic, and they've probably gone through stuff that has made them stronger.
Yeah.
And it's only something that everybody else around can actually learn from, and be thankful for, and get motivated by. So the next question that we have is from Chirantan Roopate, and he asks, what is the minimum age one should look at having a sports psychologist as part of their, sporting entourage?
So we work with children from 6+ onwards.
Wow.
And I think it changes a little bit depending on sport. So for example, chess specializes very early. So like I said, we have children from the age group of 6, 7, 8, whereas tennis starts under 8, under 10. So between the age group of 6 to 8, which is a good time to actually begin mental training. And although it may seem very early when as I'm speaking, however, that is the age when your psychological foundation is developed. So it's almost like forming a strong framework and a strong foundation for yourself as you grow and get into competitive environment, whether it's sport or anything else. So that is actually the right age group to right time to start. And we do, like we said earlier, we have programs for children right from 6+, 8+. And the way those programs are delivered may be a little different based on the age and the level of the sport that they're into. But it starts right from 6+ to elite athletes who are 20+.
It's interesting you say that age group, because at the SFA championships that we conduct annually, our age groups start from under 6.
Yeah.
So we have kids that come from under 6 right up till under 19.
Yeah.
And this is across 28 disciplines of sport. So I'd also take this opportunity to welcome you two and everybody at Samiksha to come to our championship. And of course, I can assure you that it'll be an experience that will sort of blow you away to know the kind of parents and athletes that actually come to the championship.
Yeah, most definitely, yes.
Great. So next question from Aditya Keshwani. He asks, young athletes have pressures of performance in sport and academics, right? So that's something that they have to balance. So how should they tackle that when it comes to, now, of course, how can psychology help do that?
So I think, first of all, everybody who is saying that they have the pressure to do well in sport and academics is not necessarily expecting them to come first in their academics and also come first in their sport, right? So wanting to have the accurate balance is a very realistic expectation, because, as young athletes, especially, I've played sport all my life, and till I was 18, I don't think I was spending more than maximum 6 hours on field. 6 hours is also very, quite a lot. I was doing high level, elite level sports, so maybe about that 6 hours. But in your school years, you're still spending only 4 hours of quality work. So that's just 4 hours lesser in your day, really. That's when children watch television or doing some time pass anyway. So this is just more productive. So I don't see why academics has to take a back seat, really. That's something we all believe should go hand in hand. Of course,
go on.
Of course, the focus can sort of be different, and if this is it can be 70% sport and 30% academics, but there's no need for 100% sport and 0 academics. So you have to have that balance in whatever percentage you deem important. But having that balance is extremely important, because both those skills that you learn in sport as well as education directly impact you as a person. And of course, the social skills that you learn in going to school are irreplaceable in your life. As children, they have to and must learn those skills. So I would say that yes, both is important. But go on, Janki.
Yeah, no, actually, just to add to what Gayatri was saying, I think there are two things. One is for, the player or the parent to understand that, in terms of importance, okay, sport may be at a certain time in their life, sport may be, say, 80% of their, mental focus may be 80% towards sport, and academics may be 20%. So one is about how you think about the importance, and second is how you manage your time in the day. And those two things are very different. Often what parents and children feel that, if because sport is more important for me, it means that I don't need to give so much time to academics on an everyday basis. But the amount of time that needs to be given to both should almost be equal, either 50-50, 40-60. But till a child really, till he reaches at least his undergraduation level, we believe that the amount of time that is spent has to be balanced, and to a great extent has to be tried and kept as equal as possible. But in your mind, the importance can be different, and it is important to distinguish the two.
Correct.
Also, academics and education gives athletes a lot of confidence. We've worked with, say, 18-year-olds or 19-year-olds who have, also focused and given time to academics and feel more confident when they play. And there are children who do not educate themselves or don't give it too much attention, and then when they play, they do feel that extra pressure, because that is it for them. If they don't perform, they don't have a plan B. So I think it's important to look at sport from that perspective also.
Yeah, I think a very valid point with the plan B part there as well, and it's, I think it's like you said, it's more about having a balanced outlook towards it, and then balance can be, of course, individual to everyone in terms of how they'd like to allocate time towards that. Great. So the next one is from Rushika Soni, and she says, any particular or common problem that you notice young athletes face frequently, and what are the best ways to tackle them? So is there something that you've come across that's now okay, this is quite a normal thing, and this is how you need to tackle it? Are there any issues that starkly stand out with young athletes?
I think we've mentioned them. One is feeling anxious and feeling the pressure, and second is the parental pressure. We see a lot of young athletes perceive that, whether it is explicitly put towards them or not is another matter. But these are the two most often kind of seen issues that we come across when we work with children younger than age of 14, 15.
Also, I think what I would like to sort of say, just add to what Janki is saying, is that a lot of times the young children these days pick up a lot of jargon very quickly, but they don't necessarily understand what that jargon means. So that is a very typical sort of a problem or a change that we have seen in our practice also. In the first couple of years, children were maybe not understanding certain things, and we would go down to breaking it out and telling them. Now children feel like they understand everything. So they're just throwing words like concentration, pressure, IQ, EQ, and you're just, you assume that they know this, but I think most of them don't really understand the intrinsic meaning that all these words have. So, one of the problems I think as a community that we are up for is, helping them get down to the basics really, values, cultures, understanding the ABCs really, than just reading,
throwing out
going to
jargons and
reading, right,
Googling.
without understanding what the letters are. So that sort of a thing.
Yeah. And the other part you mentioned about jargons, and something that you touched upon earlier as well, right? About going online and doing self therapy, or I don't know the medical term for it, and how risky or detrimental it can actually be. So that's also something that I think kids should actually be wary of, like you said very rightly earlier.
I think Rajesh, what's I think important is that everybody who is actually listening to this, I would say we've had huge success. If all of you check who your child is working with, there is no harm in doing that, right? You never go to a doctor and just assume that he is a doctor, right? You always want to
Yes.
know what he has
Yes.
studied, what is his qualification, who has he worked with. I think there's absolutely no harm in checking the pedigree of your mental health consultant too. I think that's a big one for all of us who are on the platform today. And also understanding that it's mental health is not Wikipedia. You can't just Google it. It's maybe a great start point if you want to understand what's happening, or there's some for you to have some acceptance about it or takes further steps. So internet can be a good start point, but it's definitely not therapy, because it has to be personalized. It has to be coming from someone who has done their education in it, understands what they're saying, and has the experience. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the difference is that, if your child is unwell, you would take your child to a doctor and not go to a chemist and say, he's not well, so give me some medication.
Right.
And I think that's the difference in knowing, like Gayatri said, the pedigree or the qualification or the experience of, the people working with your child. So it's just as important.
Yeah, absolutely. Quick one, in your experience, this is a question from Kishore Mukhopadhyay, and he asks, does sports psychology help women or young girls take up sport, or can sports psychology play that role? Because as a country we need that to happen, right? We need to make it more inclusive and more conducive for girls to take up sport.
So both Janki and I have done exercise psychology as well, which is exactly what the question is. It is about exercise adherence, feeling more motivated to follow and become more physically active. I think to answer that question in a short manner, yes, sports psychology will help them feel motivated to do that exercise and adhere to that exercise in the long run. But Janki, did you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I think same thing that, motivation is one key tenet or one key factor in mental training. And sports psychology helps a lot of young children to motivate to play sport. We see a lot of, whether it is, a girl athlete or a boy athlete, we see a lot of children wanting to drop out because they lose the enjoyment or the motivation in the sport. And mental training or sports psychology plays an important role in helping them have goals, set goals, and wanting to reach that goal. So yeah, the answer to his question is yes.
Okay, lovely. And since you mentioned goals, I'll just move on to question that's on goals. We have a couple of other questions that we've answered, and in the interest of time, I'm sort of skipping them. Aishwarya is asking, for young athletes, setting goals is often actually a challenge, right? And how can sports psychologists assist in even whether it's setting goals with parents or with coaches, and to be more specific or clear about them?
I think one thing for parents, coaches, and athletes, if they're watching, to know for themselves is that you have to be at a certain age and a stage to be able to set goals appropriately. If you set goals, just like an athlete develops physically, there is also psychological development, right? So if you expect an 8-year-old child to set goals, you're expecting something that the child cannot do. You cannot expect, it's like expecting a child to do something physically which he's not going to be able to achieve physically. So again, a sports psychologist will guide a coach or a parent or a child to understand how goals are set in a different manner at a different age, and at what level do you really need to integrate that goal setting is also important. I think goal setting is a very loosely used term. It is actually a technique used for motivation. So if your child is motivated, you do not need him to set goals. So I think that's an important factor. Like I said, it is at the age of 10, 11, maybe 12, depending on child to child. You would not expect a child to set goals before age of 12 on his own or with anybody, unless you have someone like a sports psychologist guiding you to do that. So I think don't rush to do that with your child just because it's a thing to do. Wait for the child till he's really ready to understand what it means and to be able to drive himself to get to those goals.
So that's something. Yeah, sorry, Gayatri.
Sorry, no, just to add sort of that, a lot of times young children set goals on expectations and on the language that they have heard at home or at their
Correct.
training centers. So, just because you ask them, what do you want to become? And they say world champion. Okay, that there is a difference in them setting a goal and dreaming or having an aspiration. And let's not confuse all the three things,
Correct.
all three
Correct.
different things. So I think aptly, like Janki said, there's an Asian stage for every child to do something, and just don't set goals because it's the thing to do really. It's not the only thing that you can do with your child. That they will develop anyway, so don't worry.
Yeah, and not to set unrealistic goals that a child doesn't realize what it takes to achieve them, right? So by the time that age, you lose probably some years realizing what should have happened earlier. And what I was trying to say is also, in fact, Pulela Gopichand often says he's been closely involved with the championship and all of that. So he often says that till 14, the child should just go and play.
Yes.
Right, everything will fall in place if the child starts to like playing sport and self motivates. And it's after that when everything should sort of as a supporting system around him or her that should get developed.
Yeah.
So I'll take on last question again in the interest of time, and this is a more generic one asked by Sejal. She asks, how do you think awareness about sports psychology can spread in India faster, and how long will it take before it becomes a completely evolved function in India? And I don't think there's anybody better than the two of you to sort of give your inputs on this.
I think to answer your question, we've come
Already,
a long way. We've had we've spent a decade in this field, so it's definitely growing. And like Gayatri said, we encourage a lot of psychologists to look at this as an option, and there is enough opportunity. But having said that, compared to the Western world, we're still in the nascent stages. And it will take us another 20, 30 years for it to become a completely evolved field where every athlete, every team, will have a sports psychologist. However, Gayatri and I and everyone at Samiksha has been, like you said, has been working to make sure that every athlete has minimum access to mental training and sports psychology. So we've actually done two things to work on them. One is that we've put together an e-learning program for young athletes from 12 plus to get access to basic mental training, which includes learning basic skills like visualization, self-talk, breathing techniques, which will help you in your sport. And we are launching that on the 29th of August. And the second thing that we've done is, like the earlier question, where we know that there are people interested in sports psychology, but do not know what it means and want to understand before they take a dip into it. We have a certificate course, again, an e-learning certificate course in sport and performance psychology, which is a good first step for anybody to understand whether this is something for them. Unfortunately, we do not have too many recognized formal courses in India. So a lot of them want to study abroad or want to get into the subject, but before investing heavily into it, want to understand what it is, or before taking up psychology or sports psychology, they want an in-depth understanding of what the field is like in India. That course is something that will definitely benefit them. It's a 1-month self-paced course. So these two, the e-learning platform has been put in place for psychologists, athletes, coaches, to make mental training available to every single stakeholder in sport who's in India today. So hopefully, we'll be able to make it accessible to everybody involved in sport.
Yeah, and I think there's nothing to worry. It will evolve because we've seen a change. We are very positive and optimistic about it, and just like a couple of decades ago, physical training was also very nascent in India. Back in the 80s, people didn't know what physical training was. It was almost like warm up. Look at where we have come from, where we started, right? So similarly, sports psychology also will become the buzzword at some point. The key and the game is really to stay patient, do great work, have that impact so more people understand, and deliver that great quality, which is at the pinnacle of everything else that you do. So if all psychologists, all sports psychologists, the entire community is going to do that, there's no reason why it should not evolve as a robust and a standalone field, really.
Yeah, and like you said, it will become, it's already catching steam, and it'll going forward become one of the most important aspects in sports. So for all of you, sports stakeholders, whether it's parents, coaches, athletes, and in many cases even a lot of educational institutions should look at this aspect increasingly seriously and sincerely, so that and it'll only end up helping India as a country to develop more and more champions that can perform at the national and the international stage. So I think with this, let me call this session, honestly, with a very heavy heart, call this session to a close. It was one of the most meaningful sessions that we've had, to be honest. And thank you very much, Gayatri, and thank you very much, Dr. Janki,
Thank you so much
and
for having us.
Samiksha Sports. If you have any concluding remarks, happy to hear. Otherwise, all of you guys, the e-learning program starts on the 29th of August, which is also the National Sports Day.
Yes.
So keep an eye out, and you can find all the details on Samiksha Sports page at the SFA Training Club platform. And should you have any queries, please feel free to write to us. And while the questions are still coming in, go ahead and ask us more questions. We'll ensure that we write back to you with topics that have been covered so far. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Rajas. Thanks, SFA, and also the training club page. And I hope that this has been useful for all of you. My parting thought is, whether you are an academy, an institute, an educational body, a parent, a child, or an athlete, there is something for everybody that Samiksha has to offer, for your own mental health, for your own personality development, and for your performance enhancement. So, don't let this go. Make the most of this opportunity. And, we hope to definitely see a better, mentally stronger generation of India coming forward. Thank you.
Yes. And on that note, cheers to a mentally stronger nation.
Yes.
And thank you very much
Thank you,
from SFA, and have a good weekend.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.